Mid-September 1989. A hunter's peaceful trek in Newaygo, Michigan's Manistee National Forest, ended in horror. Deep in the hole in the woods, he found 18-year-old Shannon Siders, brutally beaten, her life extinguished. This tragic discovery shattered Newaygo's peace. A murder investigation stalled, a killer, or killers, vanishing into the woods, leaving only questions for 25 agonizing years. Her father, Bob Siders, endured a quarter-century of grief, while Newaygo lived with an open wound. Then, in 2014, the silent evidence spoke. Advanced DNA and fiber analysis of Shannon's preserved clothing, along with the chilling recovery of her distinctive senior class ring, engraved SS-89, a trophy kept by her killer, finally illuminated the past. The arrests sent shockwaves. The perpetrators weren't strangers, but known community faces. Individuals who had offered condolences and even aided investigators, all while harboring the darkest secret, hidden in plain sight. Before we unravel this tale of chilling deception and the ultimate triumph of persistence, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Our channel brings compelling true crime stories, ensuring justice, however delayed, is never forgotten. This story exposes how a town's trust can be betrayed, how killers hide for decades, and how justice, after 25 years, finally caught up in Newaygo, giving a powerful voice to Shannon Siders. Have you ever felt unease in a safe place where familiar faces hide unsettling truths? Let me know in the comments below. In Newaygo, the monsters weren't lurking in shadows. They were walking among them until the truth finally ripped through their quiet lives. Newaygo, Michigan, in the summer of 1989, was a place where life unfolded with a gentle rhythm, dictated by the flow of the Muskegon River and the dense forests of red pine that hugged its banks. It was a town of just over 1,500 souls, where everyone knew your business, and anonymity was a luxury found only in the sprawling, quiet woods. To outsiders, it might have seemed quaint, even sleepy, but to those who called it home, it was a tapestry woven with generations of shared lives, quiet ambition, and the deep roots of community. Shannon Siders was the vibrant thread that brightened that tapestry. At 18, just graduated from Newaygo High School, she was a young woman brimming with a restless energy and an infectious laugh that could cut through the most somber of moods. She wasn't just another teenager, she was a beloved daughter, a cherished friend, and a beacon of youthful promise. Her father, Bob Siders, a kind-eyed man who worked the midnight shift at the local bottling plant, often described her as a firecracker, always chasing the next adventure, but with a heart as vast and open as the Michigan sky. Shannon was his world, especially after her mother had passed years prior, leaving them to navigate life's quiet corners together, including their recent move into a new, smaller apartment in the heart of town. A fresh start, they were both quietly celebrating. Life after high school held a familiar blend of anticipation and uncertainty for many in Newaygo. While some friends planned to marry young or join their parents in the local industries, Shannon saw beyond the town's familiar horizons. Her bedroom, a testament to her personality, was a cheerful clutter of classic rock posters, handwritten song lyrics, and dog-eared poetry books. Tucked away on her desk, beneath a stack of applications, was a brochure for Grand Valley State University, circled heavily in red. She dreamed of studying English, of writing, of seeing the world beyond the pine trees. Every extra shift she picked up at the local diner, every dollar she saved, was earmarked for that dream, a future where her words, not just her laughter, could fill a room. That girl had her whole life mapped out, her close friend, Jennifer Hayes, often remarked. She wanted to be the first in our circle to really make something big of herself. She just sparkled with that quiet kind of confidence only dreamers have. Shannon embraced the small-town life with gusto, enjoying bonfires by the river, late-night talks at the local hangout, and cruising Main Street with her friends, windows down, music blaring. She wasn't seriously dating anyone, her focus firmly on her aspirations. Her senior year class ring, a symbol of her accomplishments and the future she was building, was a constant fixture on her right hand, engraved with her initials SS and the year 89. It was a tangible reminder of where she'd been and where she was determined to go. Tuesday, July 18th, 1989, dawned like countless other summer days in Newaygo, promising heat and the languid pace of youth. For Shannon, the day culminated not in a diner shift or library visit, but in a small, intimate gathering at her new apartment. It was a quiet celebration of sorts, a housewarming for just her father, Bob, and her closest friend, Jennifer Hayes. They shared stories and laughter, the air filled with the comfortable familiarity of home, a sentiment particularly poignant for their fresh start in the new place. Around 10:30 p.m., as the evening began to wind down, Bob Siders, weary from a day that had started early, bid good night to the two girls. He imagined them soon calling it a night. Perhaps Jennifer would head home, and Shannon would be asleep by the time he left for work. Just moments before, Shannon had put on an old classic rock song, pulling Jennifer into a spontaneous, silly dance in their new living room. Her laughter, bright and unrestrained, echoed through the small apartment, filling the space with the vibrant hope and boundless joy of an 18-year-old on the cusp of her future. After Bob went to bed, Shannon and Jennifer decided to stretch their legs. The summer night was thick and warm, smelling of pine and damp earth after an earlier afternoon shower. The streetlights cast long, soft shadows as they walked to a nearby convenience store, their sneakers whispering against the sidewalk. They bought some sodas and snacks, enjoying the cool blast of air conditioning inside the brightly lit store and the casual, mundane comfort of teenage camaraderie. Between 11:30 p.m. on July 18th and 2 a.m. on July 19th, after leaving the convenience store and walking back towards the apartment, Shannon and Jennifer encountered the Jones brothers, Paul and Matthew. Paul, a few years older than Shannon, was known for his restless energy and quick temper, while his younger brother, Matthew, was often a quieter but equally intense presence beside him. Their family had a long history in Newaygo, and their reputation, while often intimidating, was also just part of the local landscape. As the two groups exchanged a few words on the quiet street, Paul and Matt offered Shannon a ride. Jennifer remembered a momentary hesitation in Shannon's posture, a slight shift of weight, but ultimately she knew them, trusted them enough to accept. Shannon said a quick goodbye to Jennifer, a casual wave, as she climbed into the Joneses' beat-up sedan. Jennifer distinctly remembered the dim street lamp glinting off Shannon's senior class ring, engraved with SS89. A sudden, inexplicable chill ran down Jennifer's spine, a nameless dread, but Shannon just smiled and waved. It would be the last time Jennifer would ever see that smile. When Bob Siders returned home from his shift at the bottling plant on the morning of Wednesday, July 19th, 1989, a knot of unease tightened in his stomach. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Shannon wasn't there. A quick call to Jennifer Hayes confirmed his worst fears. Shannon never arrived home after getting into the Jones brothers' car. Within minutes, the comfortable routine of Bob's life shattered into a frantic search. He immediately contacted the Newaygo County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Mark Thorne, a seasoned officer who knew most families in town, arrived at Bob's apartment by mid-morning. Jennifer, still visibly shaken, recounted to investigators how Shannon had gotten into Paul and Matthew Jones's car. This statement immediately placed the brothers at the center of the burgeoning investigation. Thorne didn't hesitate. Paul and Matthew Jones were among the first people the police interviewed. During that initial questioning, both brothers maintained the same story. They had given Shannon a ride home and dropped her off safely at the end of the road near her apartment around 2:30 a.m. They even offered convincing details, mentioning a porch light being on, a TV visible inside, and Shannon's dog moving about, which lent an air of credibility to their account. Despite the seeming coherence of their story, the Jones brothers were considered primary suspects. Deputy Thorne and his team knew something was amiss. They quickly obtained a warrant to search the Jones brothers' vehicle. Yet, with the forensic technology available in 1989, investigators found nothing conclusive. No blood, no fibers, no trace evidence that could definitively contradict their alibi or tie them to Shannon's disappearance. There was simply no physical evidence strong enough to press charges. The suspicion lingered, a dark cloud over the Jones brothers, but without proof, the investigation was quickly stymied. While investigators continued to scrutinize the Jones brothers, Bob Siders poured his grief into action. He organized search parties with neighbors and friends, combing through every familiar haunt along the Muskegon River, checking abandoned cabins and quiet clearings. He personally drove to every gas station and convenience store in Newaygo and neighboring towns, pinning up missing person flyers adorned with Shannon's bright, hopeful smile. Local radio stations broadcast descriptions of Shannon and what she had been wearing, while community volunteers, like Amy Bonner, rallied to help distribute more flyers, working tirelessly alongside a grief-stricken Bob Siders. The entire town held its breath, hoping for a sign, a phone call, anything to break the suffocating silence. Days bled into weeks, and hope, a fragile thing, began to fray. The relentless Michigan summer gave way to the crisp, golden hues of early autumn. Then, during Labor Day weekend in early September 1989, a somber discovery reignited the dwindling flame of the search, though not in the way anyone had hoped. Two hikers, enjoying the last vestiges of summer in the remote wooded area of the Manistee National Forest, a place locally known as the Hole in the Woods, stumbled upon two pieces of identification bearing Shannon Siders' name. Her student ID card and a faded library card lay partially concealed beneath a tangle of undergrowth. This confirmed that Shannon had indeed been in that desolate area, a place notorious among teenagers for parties, but now imbued with a chilling new significance. The finding sent a fresh wave of terror through Newaygo. The discovery galvanized the search effort, focusing resources on the dense, unforgiving red pine plantation. Just days later, in mid-September 1989, a hunter venturing deeper into the hole in the woods, miles from any paved road, made the horrific discovery. Shannon's body lay concealed amidst the thick trees and undergrowth. He immediately reported it to the state police post in Newaygo. The medical examiner, arriving at the desolate scene, documented severe injuries. Shannon had been brutally beaten, suffering blunt force trauma to the head, which was determined to be the cause of death. Along with this grim assessment, investigators meticulously collected Shannon's clothing, noting the presence of foreign fibers and hairs, preserving these as crucial pieces of evidence, even if their full potential would remain untapped for decades. There was also evidence consistent with sexual assault, including injuries and positioning that suggested rape and mutilation in the perineal area. The quiet mystery of a missing girl had tragically transformed into the brutal reality of a murder investigation. With Shannon Siders' body discovered and the grim reality of murder confirmed, the Newaygo County Sheriff's Department, alongside the Michigan State Police, intensified their efforts. Detective Pat Headland, A veteran investigator whose calm demeanor belied a tenacious will took a lead role. The Manistee National Forest area, particularly the hole in the woods, became a desolate, sprawling crime scene. Forensic teams meticulously combed the area, using every technique available in the late 1980s. They searched for footprints, tire tracks, and any other discarded items that might point to a perpetrator. Despite their exhaustive efforts, the remote, natural environment, combined with the passage of time since Shannon's disappearance in July, offered few definitive clues. The discovery of her ID in early September, and her body weeks later, meant the elements had taken their toll on potential evidence, making a pristine recovery impossible. Investigators re-interviewed Jennifer Hayes and the other 7 individuals who had been among the last to see Shannon alive with the Jones brothers. These 8 statements were painstakingly pieced together to reconstruct a timeline, solidifying that Shannon had indeed gotten into Paul and Matthew Jones's car. The brothers, already under a cloud of suspicion from their initial interviews, were brought in again, their alibi re-examined. They clung to their story. They dropped her off. They even passed their polygraph tests, a common but often unreliable tool of the era, which further complicated the picture. While hairs and fibers had been collected from Shannon's clothing at the scene, the forensic technology of 1989 simply did not allow investigators to definitively link them to specific individuals like the Jones brothers. Without that conclusive physical evidence to contradict their alibi or to press charges, the case remained stuck in a frustrating limbo. One crucial detail, however, haunted Detective Headland: Shannon's senior class ring. It was a distinctive piece, engraved with her initials SS and the year 89, a cherished possession she wore constantly. The ring was not found at her apartment, nor was it found at the gruesome scene in the hole in the woods. Headland recognized its absence as a potent, unspoken lead, a tangible link that, if located, could point directly to the killer. He confided in Deputy Thorne, "If we could find that ring, we could find the person who killed Shannon." Yet, despite its significance, this detail was carefully withheld from the public, a strategic piece of information meant to authenticate a future confession or witness testimony. The missing ring became the silent, tantalizing key to the entire mystery. As 1989 drew to a close and a frigid Michigan winter set in, the active investigation began to wane. The lack of decisive physical evidence that could be linked to the Jones brothers, coupled with their past polygraphs and unshakable though suspicious alibis, meant that the case, despite having clear persons of interest, couldn't move forward. Newaygo, a town once gripped by frantic fear, now settled into a deep, chilling sorrow. Shannon Siders' photograph, once plastered on every storefront, began to fade. The Michigan State Police scaled back their involvement, and while local law enforcement, including Detective Headland, refused to close the file, the daily momentum stalled. The hole in the woods became a silent, desolate monument to a broken promise of justice. The Siders case officially entered the grim category of cold, another unsolved mystery whispered about in the quiet corners of Newaygo, a wound that would fester for decades in the heart of the community. Time moves differently when a crime remains unsolved, particularly in a small town haunted by its memory. For Bob Siders, the calendar became both a torment and a grim companion. Each passing day without answers deepened his grief, yet also brought him one day closer, he hoped, to the truth. "People tell you that grief gets easier with time," Bob would explain in a 1995 interview with a local paper, his voice raw with decades of longing. "But when there's no closure, no body to bury, no justice for your daughter, you're stuck in this terrible limbo. You can't move forward, and you can't truly go back to who you were. The small apartment, once a symbol of a fresh start for Shannon and Bob, became a shrine of sorts to his lost daughter. Shannon's bedroom remained largely untouched, her poetry books still stacked on the nightstand, concert ticket stubs pinned to a corkboard. Bob, who continued to work his shifts at the bottling plant, would meticulously dust the room on his days off, as if Shannon might walk through the door any moment and need a clean space to plan her next adventure. He channeled his profound grief into relentless advocacy, refusing to let her memory fade. He attended every town council meeting, spoke to every reporter, and personally reviewed what police reports he could access, seeking any overlooked detail. He became a familiar yet heartbreaking figure at the Newaygo County Sheriff's Department, always polite, always persistent, a living reminder of a promise unfulfilled. Bob's unwavering dedication inspired a core group of community members, including Amy Bonner, to continue Shannon's vigil. Every July 18th, on the anniversary of her disappearance, they organized a quiet gathering near the entrance to the Manistee National Forest, close to where her ID had been found. Candles were lit, prayers were said, and fresh flyers, now yellowed at the edges but still bearing Shannon's youthful face, were distributed. What began with dozens of participants gradually dwindled to a faithful few, but the family and their closest supporters never missed a year. Local media covered these anniversaries, though the stories grew shorter with each passing decade, reflecting the slow creep of public amnesia. The only solace for Bob was that the Jones brothers, Paul and Matthew, remained firmly on law enforcement's radar, a quiet understanding shared between him and Detective Headland that suspicion, even without proof, never truly dies. But as the 1990s gave way to a new millennium, the case of Shannon Siders, like so many others across the country, settled deeper into the archives, a cold case gathering dust. The initial lack of decisive physical evidence to connect the Jones brothers to the crime, coupled with their consistent alibis and past polygraphs in 1989, had created an insurmountable barrier for investigators. The critical details, known to witnesses like Jennifer Hayes, that Shannon had entered the Joneses' car, were insufficient without further direct evidence of the murder itself. Throughout the 1990s and into the early 2000s, Newaygo, like many small towns in Michigan, experienced its own quiet transformations. Local factories faced economic challenges, leading to closures and a gradual shift in the town's population as younger residents sought opportunities in Grand Rapids or Lansing. The familiar faces of older residents slowly gave way to new families, many of whom knew of Shannon Siders only as a whispered local tragedy, a cautionary tale from another era. The Manistee National Forest, the silent witness to her final moments, remained vast and unchanging, but the paths leading to the hole in the woods became less trodden, less known to the younger generations. The Newaygo County Sheriff's Department also saw its own changes. Veteran officers, like Detective Pat Headland, who had carried the burden of Shannon's unsolved case for years, eventually retired. His office, once covered with maps and timelines, was cleared for new leadership. Headland's replacement, Detective Sergeant Adam Mercer, represented a new generation of law enforcement. Mercer brought fresh eyes and an unwavering belief that no case was ever truly cold, just waiting for the right moment, the right piece of information, or the right technology to bring it back to life. He kept a photograph of Shannon Siders on his desk, a quiet promise to Bob and to the community. By the 2000s, forensic science was undergoing a revolution. DNA analysis, once a nascent field in 1989, had become a powerful, definitive tool. New national databases and sophisticated testing methods offered unprecedented opportunities to revisit old evidence. Detective Mercer, along with other forward-thinking investigators, began to push for a dedicated approach to the county's unsolved homicides. He saw the potential in leveraging these modern techniques against the physical evidence meticulously, though perhaps unknowingly, preserved by earlier detectives. This local push coincided with a broader initiative within the Michigan State Police. Recognizing the emotional toll and societal cost of lingering cold cases across the state, a new specialized unit was conceived. In the early 2010s, after years of advocacy and strategic planning, the Michigan State Police Cold Case Team was officially established. Its mandate was clear: to revisit long unsolved mysteries, applying modern forensic science and fresh investigative perspectives to cases that had once seemed hopeless. Detective Sergeant Adam Mercer, known for his methodical thoroughness and relentless pursuit of justice, was assigned to the team. The Siders case, with its identified persons of interest and its tragic brutality, immediately stood out. It was one of the first cases the newly formed cold case team decided to tackle. Mercer, along with Detective John Forner, a meticulous timeline expert, and Detective Mike Stevens, a skilled re-interviewer, began the arduous task of reviewing every single document from the original 1989 investigation. Thousands of pages of reports, witness statements, interview transcripts, and forensic notes, once stored in dusty boxes, were now digitized, cross-referenced, and analyzed with modern software. Their mission was clear: to find the cracks in the old narratives, to re-examine the silent witnesses of evidence, and to finally pierce the decades-long silence that had protected Shannon's killers. The investigation into the murder of Shannon Siders, dormant for nearly 25 years, was officially reopened. The Michigan State Police Cold Case Team's office, a converted conference room at the Newaygo post, quickly became a hub of renewed purpose. The walls were soon covered with maps of the Manistee National Forest, intricate timelines of July 18th and 19th, 1989, and photographs of a smiling Shannon Siders. Detective Sergeant Adam Mercer, leading the charge, ensured that Shannon's information was immediately entered into national missing persons and homicide databases that hadn't existed in 1989. Cold cases are never truly cold, Mercer often reminded his team. They're just waiting for the right piece of information, the right technology, or the right person to come forward. Their first crucial step was a complete review of the original 1989 case files. Thousands of pages of police reports, initial witness statements, and forensic notes were not just read, but meticulously digitized and cross-referenced by Detective John Forner, who excelled at spotting inconsistencies in decades-old accounts. The team approached the Siders investigation with fresh eyes, but with immense respect for the diligent, if technologically limited, work of the original detectives like Pat Headland. Those original detectives were working with the tools they had, Forner would later reflect. Our advantage isn't that we're better investigators. It's that we have better technology and the ability to look back without the pressure of the initial 48-hour window. That better technology included the revolutionary advancements in forensic science. The small, carefully collected pieces of physical evidence from 1989, Shannon's clothing still bearing the foreign fibers and hairs, represented a silent promise. These items, once analyzed only by rudimentary microscopic comparison, now held the potential for DNA analysis. In 2011, as one of their first acts, the cold case team sent all the old physical evidence to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab in Lansing for modern DNA testing and advanced fiber analysis. It was a painstaking process, requiring the utmost care with decades-old, potentially degraded samples. While awaiting the results of the forensic re-examination, Detectives Mercer, Forner, and Stevens embarked on the equally arduous task of re-interviewing dozens of people who had been involved in or knew something about the case in 1989. They painstakingly reconstructed the events of that fateful summer night, seeking out former friends, acquaintances, and anyone who might have crossed paths with Shannon or the Jones brothers. They were not just looking for new information, but for subtle shifts in old stories, for memories that time might have mellowed, or for fears that circumstances might have finally quelled. Many original witnesses had moved away, some had died, but the team's persistence led them to the remaining few. This renewed probe aimed to finally pierce the human silence that had protected Shannon's killers for so long. The Jones brothers, Paul and Matthew, had remained in the Newaygo area for years, their reputation for volatility still quietly known. But as decades passed and their immediate local influence waned, the environment began to shift. The fear of retaliation that had once paralyzed potential witnesses began to dissipate, replaced by the weight of conscience. The cold case detectives, through patient, empathetic questioning, started to build the trust necessary to encourage long-held secrets to finally emerge into the light. The stage was set for the breakthrough that Newaygo had waited a quarter of a century to hear. The wait for forensic results stretched through 2012 and into 2013, an agonizing period for the cold case team. The Michigan State Police Crime Lab, though state-of-the-art, was grappling with an unprecedented surge in cold case submissions from departments across Michigan. This created a significant backlog, making the delicate analysis of decades-old samples from the Siders case a protracted, though necessary, process. Meanwhile, detectives Mercer, Forner, and Stevens continued their relentless re-interview process. They systematically revisited every witness from 1989 and then expanded their search to anyone who might have heard whispers or suspicions over the years. This painstaking work, combined with the changing dynamics in Newaygo, slowly began to chip away at the wall of silence that had protected the Jones brothers. One of the first crucial breakthroughs came from a former acquaintance of Paul Jones, Lindsay Bradley. She had been a girlfriend of Paul's in the months after Shannon's disappearance. In a series of cautious, trust-building interviews with Detective Stevens, Lindsay finally revealed a long-held secret that sent a jolt through the investigation. She recounted an unsettling memory from that time. While sitting in Paul's car one day, she noticed a high school class ring glinting in the ashtray, mixed with loose change. When she asked Paul about it, he was dismissive, claiming he'd just found it somewhere. Lindsay's curiosity got the better of her. She picked it up and saw the small personal engraving inside, SS-89. Realizing the initials matched the name of the missing girl the whole town was talking about, she confronted him again. It was then, she said, that Paul responded with a chilling offhand comment, "She's probably dead." When Lindsay Bradley recounted finding the ring in the ashtray, the interview room fell into a heavy, absolute silence. Detective Stevens, usually composed, felt a cold jolt run down his spine. This was more than just a lead. It was tangible evidence, a quarter-century-old lie shattered by a small, cruel detail. It was the confirmation of Headland's decades-old hunch, a physical anchor to the evil they hunted. As the team processed Lindsay Bradley's bombshell testimony, the forensic results from the Michigan State Police Crime Lab began to arrive between 2013 and early 2014. The scientific analysis, using modern DNA and fiber technologies unavailable in 1989, delivered the irrefutable proof that investigators had dreamed of for a quarter century. The hairs collected from Shannon's clothing at the crime scene in September 1989 were successfully analyzed, yielding DNA profiles. These profiles showed DNA matches to both Paul and Matthew Jones. Further, sophisticated testing of the microfiber samples found on Shannon's clothing revealed a match to the type of upholstery in the Jones brothers' car, the very vehicle that had been searched inconclusively in 1989. The original detectives' meticulous preservation of evidence, though limited by past technology, had finally paid off. The convergence of Lindsay Bradley's damning testimony about the missing ring and the conclusive DNA and fiber evidence created an overwhelming, undeniable case. After 25 years, the silence of the grave and the silence of fear had both been shattered. The truth had finally clawed its way out of the shadows and into the light. With the dual breakthroughs of Lindsay Bradley's testimony and the conclusive DNA evidence, Detectives Mercer, Forner, and Stevens had their undeniable targets, Paul and Matthew Jones. Their immediate task was to build a comprehensive profile of the brothers, scrutinizing their lives over the past 25 years. They discovered that the Jones brothers, true to the pattern of many predators who evade initial capture, had built lives designed to avoid scrutiny, blending into the fabric of Newaygo and its surrounding communities. Paul Jones, the older brother, had been 27 years old in 1989. After Shannon's disappearance, he remained in the Newaygo area, holding various blue-collar jobs that offered a degree of transience but kept him within familiar territory. He married in the mid-1990s, had 2 children, and on paper settled into a semblance of normalcy. He volunteered occasionally at local events, attended church irregularly, and maintained a polite, if reserved, demeanor with neighbors. There were no major brushes with the law beyond a few minor infractions like disorderly conduct or traffic violations. His younger brother, Matthew, 25 in 1989, followed a similar trajectory. He also remained in the area, taking up work in construction. He never married, but maintained a small social circle, often seen at local bars, but rarely causing overt trouble. They were just the Jones brothers, Detective Mercer later reflected, describing the difficulty in seeing them as anything other than a part of the local landscape. Everyone knew they had a reputation, a certain volatility, but they seemed to have settled down. No one looked twice, which is precisely how someone hiding a deadly secret survives for so long. Their ability to maintain a quiet existence, to project an air of unremarkable stability, was what had allowed them to escape justice for so long. They hadn't fled the country or drastically changed their identities. Instead, they had subtly integrated, waiting out the storm of suspicion. The most chilling aspect of their long evasion, however, was their continued presence in Newaygo. They had remained within miles of where Shannon's body was found, living lives that appeared outwardly ordinary while carrying the horrific secret of her murder. The fact that they had been among the first and strongest suspects in 1989, yet had successfully deflected suspicion for a quarter-century, spoke to a calculated cunning. They had understood the limitations of 1989 forensics and the unspoken social codes of their small town, leveraging both to their advantage. Their past polygraphs, unreliable as they were, had bought them invaluable time, convincing enough to prevent charges in the absence of hard evidence. But time had finally delivered the tools that the Jones brothers had once been protected from. The cold case unit now possessed the direct physical links that 1989 investigators could only dream of, combined with eyewitness testimony that shattered their long-held alibis. The facade of normalcy, meticulously constructed over 25